So would that happen when you work with, even if you had an external editor? Are you like in the room with him
I think we're gonna have to be.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think there's, with an editor, you want to give them space to have their voice. Yeah. You don't want to micromanage them from the get-go. Like,
but you give some direction.
Yeah, I mean, normally, as I say, like this will be my first time working with an editor, but you know, as I understand it, like the editor will do an assembly, and then the director will make selects from performances. So like they might like just line up the takes and the shots that they think flow well, and then the editor will have like, you know, depending on who they are, then they'll have like different takes stacked above, so that if you didn't like a performance, you could just alternate them. And then once the director's selected their favourite performances, if you imagine for a film, like take 1 in this shot is favourite, take 3 in the next one, you know, they basically like condense
they stack them so that you can just choose easily, like in Premiere or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And then once you've made your performance select, then they can crunch it down and get into rhythm and flair and flow and, you know, all of these things that they want to do and add music in. And so you'd kind of go in, make your selects with them, and then leave them to go away and edit it further, and then you come in and do like a fine cut and work on adding other things, or maybe you didn't like that take after all and it doesn't work. And that's actually like often during that phase where restructuring can happen. Like, you know, like let's say a scene isn't working here, you might put it over there.
And how many takes would you typically do?
It really depends. On a performance shot, like I very rarely will go above 7. I think like after that
gets tired.
It gets tired, and I feel like often you've exhausted the ways that you want to go. I think like I tend to get to a place where I'm happy with the performance, and then I'll do one that is a little bit alternative and could potentially work in the story if I took like a different avenue leading into the scene, or like I want a different out at the end of the scene. Like, you know, let's do one that's aggravated at the end of the scene instead of melancholic. You know, like you might try and switch up the tone a little bit.
Little final notes,
Yeah, and just so you've got that, if you needed it in the edit, you're like, oh, actually, we do need one that's maybe more.
Where does the music come in? Do you cut scenes to the music?
Yeah.
That's always a big.
I'm very big on music and film. I find it the most emotive part of the viewing experience. You know, when the dialogue stops and like the pictures just start taking over and the music starts to swell. That's when, like, you know, if I'm guilty of like second screening. I think we all are, and like that's like the point where like actually your phone like dips and you're like stuck into it, you know, and like I think that those moments are the most emotive and evocative.
Absolutely.
And so
you could have the same scene cut to 2 different musics.
Yeah.
It would just be a completely different feel. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, the tempo tracks go in very, very early, and they stay there until Sam, the composer, comes in and
just does his absolute masterwork. Yeah.
Oh, so it was all original score.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There was no like brought in tunes.
We've got we have a collaboration with a composer who I met on the student feature film. So he made like 45 minutes of original music for that film.
Wow.
At uni, and he went on to the National Film School. He's now working on loads of great things, but I keep calling him back, and he keeps coming back. Whether he does, he probably can't say no at this point. You know, me and him, we have a really good working relationship. You know, he pushes things, and I try and push him, and I think that's the best.
Does it get weird because you must watch the movie so many times over?
Yeah.
In a way, by the time it's finished, you've almost like
it's
hard to like imagine what it must be like to watch it with fresh eyes. Like
that's where the editor comes in, and also what's the word I'm looking for? Just screenings to other people, test screenings. Yeah.
And then you watch their reaction.
You know, and they can tell you if a film is moving too fast or if they're not understanding a beat or something, and that's really useful. But it definitely gets to a point
some fresh eyes on it.
And you also always have like some things that you wish you did differently, and you're sat there and you're just having to like watch it over and over again.
It's never perfect. You can always improve.
But it is funny because we with Rider in particular, we had quite a long edit process, but in a good way, where you think the film is done and you can kind of revisit it after it's been sitting in a drawer for a couple of months, and you're like, let's look at this a whole new way, and basically restructured the film in that way, and that can sometimes work. But the biggest litmus paper test for me was when we actually screened Rider for the first time, and like I'd seen it so many times objectively, I barely watched that film. We were watching the audience and seeing what people were thinking, and it's a really special experience seeing people watch something you've made like that. It's bizarre but amazing.
And seeing them
Yeah.
live react. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, what did you end up doing with Rider? You took it to some festivals last year.
Yeah, so it premiered in November at Aesthetica, which is up in York, and yeah, it had its like premiere there with loads of other amazing drama shorts, and yeah, it's continuing its journey now at the moment.
This journey, right?
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
continuing on.
And is the idea to take that to make it into a feature length?
Yeah, it is. We've written a feature length. It's kind of it's a nice place at the moment, pending a bit more development. But yeah, we're quite excited by it. It's quite a big expansion on the ideas that are within it. But maybe we can talk about that one
Sure.
when it's like when it's
When
properly
it's